Hello, YouTube. Today we're going to talk about a very depressing topic, um, but I figure I should say it how I see it. And the reason I'm talking about it is because it seems that most people don't really consider these things, or it just isn't talked about, or something. I don't know, maybe a lot of people agree with me on this, but I'm pretty convinced, in most cases, for most people, it isn't really morally reasonable to have a child. Um, so the reason I say that is due to a few things. Um, when you're involving another life form, uh, it is your responsibility to provide for them, take care of them, and help them through the vicissitudes of life. But the problem with most people is you really can't do that effectively or without major trade-offs unless you have a lot of things going for you. The most obvious one of which would be money. Uh, Simply the cost of being able to raise a child is extremely high nowadays. And that's only accounting for raising them in a bare minimum kind of way. And when I think about morals and ethics, and if it's your responsibility to help this person essentially live the best life they can lead, um, you have to do much beyond the bare minimum, to really justify giving this person a good life. Uh, so I'll just give you an example. If you're rich, then if that child wants to go to college, that's no problem. You can just pay for college. They don't have to work full time to be able to go to college at the same time. Um, Going to college is a nightmare while having to work full time. They can get dates easier. It's a lot easier to get a date if you already have a house at 20 and you're not living out of a cardboard box. You can buy nice clothing. You can hire personal trainers. You can hire nutritionists. Um, all of that, unfortunately, makes a difference in life outcomes. I would challenge you to think about, you always hear these psychology papers that say, like, after a certain income bracket, I believe inflation adjusted, it would be around after $100,000 a year, happiness doesn't rise. Um, I would counterpoint that by asking anyone, if you could get $1 million right now, if you would not take it. Um, the answer to that question would be a resounding no. And if people do say that they wouldn't take it, well, they're wrong because it is makes life so much easier to have the amount of money where you can just do what you want when you want. If you have a job that you hate, you can just leave it. You don't even need a job because you have so much money that a job is unnecessary. Um, so, in other words, raising a kid into this kind of wage slavery is a kind of cruelty that is not really thought about, talked about from what I see. I always hear people saying that you have a moral obligation to raise children, and I feel it's more accurate to say you have a moral obligation to not screw over another life form that didn't consent to being alive in the first place. The calculus changes a bit once you already are alive because we have all these biases and incentives to stay alive, but it doesn't mean that you you could have had a much fairer shake, a much better hand to play if you were in better circumstances. So it seems to me that the basic argument would be why would you not optimize those circumstances? And if you're not optimizing those circumstances, then it seems to me you're doing a moral error because you're, again, to put it bluntly, screwing over the kid that you're going to have. Um, so money is just one aspect, but it's a big one. And the vast majority of parents I don't see as even remotely there. Like I mean, you could even get into the fact that if you have a kid and you can afford most things, and you can even afford for them to go to college and everything, and you can even afford for them to have a house. What if they have any kind of condition? These conditions are vastly more expensive due to our excellent, that's sarcasm, uh, healthcare system in this country, that being the United States. Um, to the point where it can bankrupt people who are even upper middle class, um, due to this kid having this or that rare disease or rare diagnosis or whatever. And they have to be in and out of the healthcare system for perpetually for their entire life. Um, a lot of people can't handle that comfortably. And it seems to me that that would have to be a contingency that would be considered if you were trying to optimize this kid's life with things that we know are relevant to happiness. So for me, the base moral equation would just be in concern to happiness. I reject um, other ethical systems that look at other things. So I'm pretty much a flatline utilitarianism person. Utilitarianist? I don't know. Uh, I can explain that in another video because I differ a little bit from the standard orthodoxy. But anyway, um, the other thing is, I mean, you can really get into the weeds here because the home life, your genetics are a huge one. A lot of people have shit genetics. They really don't have very good genes, and it shows. And then there are people who just win the absolute lottery and just do not have any trifles in life because they're attractive. Um, and hate to break it to you, this is not politically correct to say, but life is vastly more pleasurable when you're attractive. It's vastly easier. You're going to get a lot more attention. You're going to get a lot more offers. You're not going to try nearly as hard for basically anything that you want because people will just give it to you. Um, the list goes on and on. So currently, right now, as far as I'm aware, we are not at a place where we can guarantee that your kid will look like this or that. I've known people where one child is absolutely gorgeous, and without even trying, and then the sister or brother is hideous. And it seems like they got burdened with all of the mental disorders, which is not surprising because you're more prone to mental disorders if you have a very disorderly life, which you would have if you're very ugly. Um, so again, why these things are not talked about is a bit beyond me because it seems to me if both parents are very likely to produce a very unfortunate looking offspring, then you really have no business having offspring because you're making it difficult for that poor child to get any kind of attention at all, um, unless they pay for it with money that they probably don't have because ugly people also tend to be poorer. Why is that? Well, it's easier to get money when you're hot. You need only look at OnlyFans as an example. Now, obviously, not everyone is going to do OnlyFans, and that applies mostly to women, but the point stands. Um, you can find plenty of male models who are having absolutely no trouble at all doing this or that, getting this or that movie career or whatever, acting experience. And not that they even have any acting experience, but they'll get the career because they are incredibly easy on the eyes. And all of that is luck. So it seems to me if you're going to roll the dice as a parent, it would be incumbent on you to make sure those dice are as stacked in your favor as possible. And it is quite baffling that people don't seem to consider that uh, at all, really, to the point of they'll just have a kid because they want a kid because they'll have a kid and completely fuck over that child. Um, so another thing to point out is intelligence. Intelligence is highly heritable. And all of these things, when you're talking about gene arguments, like you can have two extremely attractive parents and have a very ugly child. You can have two very smart parents and have a very stupid child. Like none of it is a guarantee. But it seems to me, and maybe I'm just wrong about this, but it seems to me that your likelihood in terms of uh, statistics is that you're going to be more likely to have this or that outcome, uh, depending on what you're looking at.